Welcome back to this new CreepyNews episode. Today I want to share with you another unsolved murder case dubbed the Lava Lake Murders. It was narrated by Nightmare Falls, which some of you may know, shouted me out. Let me go off topic for a moment. I remember he contacted me on my old channel, CreepyNews 1.0, when I had around 50k subscribers and he had around 39 or something. I took one look at his channel and I figured he's passionate enough, so I'll show him some support. I told my viewers back then about his channel, and he would come back to me back in the day saying I was the first person who gave him a chance on YouTube. Imagine that. Well, the only thing I can say about his channel now is a good job for surpassing my old numbers and keep it up. Since most YouTubers get excited about starting a channel but they don't stay consistent, and some even gave up entirely. They upload for a few weeks perhaps and are gone forever. He sure does know consistency and the true mentality of building a channel. So by now I'm lucky to have him narrate a video for CreepyNews 2.0. Thanks a lot. Perhaps one day we can work on a video for your channel. That would be awesome, dude. Come on, let's discuss it. If you agree, let's discuss that. Let us know in the comment section below. I never expected him to shout me out randomly out of nowhere, as he did, but it's pretty cool and always appreciate it. With that out of the way, I hope you're ready to hear about some bizarre unsolved case. Prepare your body. Let's get right into it.
In the cold weather during the month of January back in 1924, something gruesome occurred in Oregon. 3 people were found brutally murdered, and the case remains unsolved to this day. In a few more years, it will be 100 years ago, but it's still a case worth sharing. The victims were named Edward Nichols, he was 50, Roy Wilson, 35, and Dewey Morris, 25. What befell this group of friends on that fateful day? What was supposed to be a time for hunting took a turn for the worse. They planned to stay in the winter in a remote cabin owned by a contractor named Edward Logan. Their job while at the cabin would be trapping animals in the wilderness. They moved to the cabin during the fall of 1923, and just before Christmas, Nichols sold a sled full of expensive furs and told locals that the fur trapping was going great. Not long after Christmas, they had a visitor, and his name was Alan Wilcoxon, a local resort owner who was traveling in the snowy weather from his own home on foot to another resort he owned in Elk Lake. He took a small detour and decided to visit the cabin of the 3 men. His arrival date was January 15, 1924, and it must have been a nice evening since he decided to stay until the next day. The men apparently told him about their successful endeavors in trapping animals and collecting furs to sell at the nearby market. The next day he left to resume his journey towards his own lodge. It is important to note that this was the last sighting of the 3 men alive. Dewey Morris had a brother who became worried after having no correspondence since December 1923. According to the different reports by now, it had been 3 months since the last correspondence with the 3 men. He decided to check up on them, and while in the area, he noticed multiple mink traps were left unmaintained. Together with Pearl Linnes, a superintendent of Tomalo Fish Hatchery, they notified a search team to go and look for the missing men. After arriving at the cabin, they noticed there was burned food on the stove, and the dining table had been set. After that, there was no sign of the men themselves. There was a sled outside of the cabin, but certain equipment was found to be missing. Near the cabin was a fox pen that turned up to be completely empty. They contained very expensive foxes owned by Edward Logan, the owner of the cabin. After further investigation of the pen, they found a bloody claw hammer in one of the corners. They left the fox pen to check on the trapping lines the man had laid and discovered numerous animal remains entirely frozen by the cold winter weather. This provided clear evidence they were left unattended for quite some time. A county sheriff by the name of Clarence Adams arrived the following day. They decided to take the investigation towards another place near the shore of Big Lava Lake. It didn't take long for them to find more evidence that will ultimately lead to the gruesome discovery of the 3 dead men. First, they found another large sled the men had used to travel through the area. It was marked with stains that were later confirmed to be blood. Some further investigation of the area led the search team to discover large pools of blood in a frozen lake, a hole that had been recently made but was already frozen over again. A human tooth and human hair were also found. A little further into the lake where the snow had melted, they could use a boat to further explore the area, and it was then they found the bodies of all 3 men floating in the water. They quickly performed an autopsy of all 3 men, and this is what they discovered on the remains. First, it was clear all men had died by gunshot wounds. To be specific, both a shotgun and a handgun were used. There was also signs of blunt force trauma, which might have been caused by the bloody claw hammer found in the fox pen. Wilson had a wound on the right shoulder, in the back of his head. Nichols' jaw had been shattered by a shotgun blast. They also discovered a bullet hole in his head. Dewey Morris had a gunshot wound on his left forearm and blunt force trauma to his head. Again, most likely caused by the claw hammer. A sheriff by the name of Claude McCauley had the following to say: "Even though the weather was perfect, the clear air was impregnated by the odor of death and decomposition. And it was with this undefinable, the spirit of awe and consternation that the little party of hardy outdoorsmen laid aside their packs, kicked off their snowshoes, and prepared to tackle a grim job which was little to their liking. After all the gruesome details were put together, the police quickly found an initial suspect, a local woodsman named Erickson. However, they had to dismiss him because he provided an alibi. It was clear to investigators that at least 2 of the men weren't killed near the cabin they were staying at, but were lured away to another location where they most likely were shot and killed. Perhaps Morris, who showed signs of blunt force trauma by a hammer, was the only one killed closest to the cabin itself. Edward Logan provided another potential suspect of the crime. This person of interest was known as Lee Collins, a fellow trapper in the area. Allegedly, he got into a fight with the 3 men over a wallet that had been stolen. In the heat of the moment, he threatened he would return to kill Edward Nichols. They discovered a little later on that Lee Collins wasn't even the person's real name. In reality, he was called Charles Kimsey and was known to police for robbery and attempted murder not too long ago. It seems he had fled the area before he could go on trial for the attempted murder of the previous victim, and it took police 9 years to finally catch him in Kalispell, Montana. After being taken into custody and put on trial, he received life imprisonment in the Oregon State Penitentiary. Even though he ended up becoming the main suspect for the murder of the 3 men at the cabin near Lake Lava, they were unable to collect enough evidence to link him officially to the murders, and the case has remained unsolved ever since.